This is the true story of the year 1864. On a place called the Auckland Islands. The Auckland Islands are a small cluster of barren volcanic outcroppings stretching 465 kilometres south of New Zealand. In the 19th century, the Great Clipper Route, the trade highway carrying ships between Europe, Australia and America, passed right by these islands. They sat directly in the path of global commerce, and they were the graveyard.
On the 3rd of January 1864, the schooner Grafton lay on the southern coast of the Auckland Islands. That night, a gale rolled in. The anchor chain snapped. And the ship was driven onto the rocks. Her crew of 5 made it to shore, and they were lucky to salvage a gun, a dinghy, food, tools, wood and canvas. They built shelters, they hunted seals, and I began to wait. Four months later, on the 11th of May, 1864, in the middle of the night, another ship was driven onto the same island, the Invercauld. On the northern coast, 20 miles away from the Grafton survivors. Of her crew of 25, 19 reached the shore. But they had almost nothing. Little food, some wood from the wreck, and 2 boxes of matches. They too built shelters. They too began to wait. By the time the storm eased, 6 of their crewmates were already dead. The 19 who reached shore had only each other. They believed they were alone on the most remote island in the Southern Ocean. They were wrong. It seems incredible. 2 castaway crews, the same island, and yet neither knew the other existed. The Auckland Islands are fiercely inhospitable. Towering cliffs, deep ravines, dense, near impenetrable scrub. Both crews focused on one thing: survival, not exploration, and their fates could not have been more different. Much has been written about the contrast between the 2 crews, and it starts with what they had. The Grafton survivors had tools, they had weapons, they had supplies for 2 months, and by sheer luck, the southern end of the island was home to a vast seal colony. Food, fuel, and the raw materials for clothing The Invercauld survivors had almost nothing. Their matches were lost in an accident. Trying to dry them out, they set the entire supply on fire. And the northern end of the island offered them little. No seal colony, no abundance, only rock. But that wasn't the biggest difference. From the start, the men of the Invercauld lived by one rule: every man by himself. The sick were left behind, the injured were abandoned. Even when they discovered the ruins of an old abandoned settlement, hunger continued to kill them one by one. And at the heart of that collapse was the man who should have prevented it. Captain George Del Carno, the senior officer of the Invercauld, the man whose duty was to lead. But Del Carno had given up. He shared no food, he gave no honors, he watched his crew die and did nothing. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, a different rhythm of life had taken hold. The Grafton survivors woke together. They ate together. They worked together. Captain Musgrave had reading classes in the cabin every evening. The engineer, Francois Reynal, built a forge and scrap metal and taught the others how to make tools, needles, and even buttons from albatross bone. They were not just surviving, they were building a life. But on the Invercauld, leadership did not die with the captain's authority. It just moved. His name was Robert Holding, 23 years old, common crewman. He hunted, he foraged, he carried the sick when they could no longer walk. Without him, none of the 25 would have survived. Months passed, then more months. On the southern coast, the Grafton survivors watched the sea every day, waiting for a ship that never came. The Invercauld survivors stopped counting. They no longer expected anything at all. After 12 months, Captain Musgrave gathered his men. No rescue was coming. They would have to save themselves. They turned to the only resources they had left, the broken bones of the Graft, lying where she had wrecked a year earlier. Plank by plank, they began to rebuild her tendi, raising her sides, adding a false keel, decking her over. They were not building a ship, they were building one final chance. On the northern coast, there was no plant, there was no boarding building, there was no boat building, no mission, no strategy. The Invercauld survivors waited and waited and slowly died. Their rescue, when it finally came, would not be of their own making. Welp. By July of 1865, the Grafton survivors had finished their boat. They had been on the island for 18 months, and they had to make a choice. The boat was small, too small to carry all 5 men safely across the open ocean. To save everyone, 3 would have to leave, and 2 would have to stay behind. Captain Musgrave volunteered to go. So did Francois Reynal and a young Norwegian sailor named Alec McLaren. They would attempt to cross 450 kilometers. They set off on the 19th of July 1865. The voyage that followed should not have been survivable. 5 days of freezing gales, towering waves higher than boat itself, sleet, fog, and nights so dark they sailed behind. They had no instruments beyond a damaged compass and Musgrave's memory of the stars. And yet, on 24th of July, 5 days after leaving the sighted land, Stewart Island, the southernmost edge of New Zealand, they had made it. What Musgrave did next is what defined him as a captain. He could have arrested, he could have gone home. Instead, within days of arriving, he was raising money in the town of Invercauld to charter the ship. He chartered the Flying Scud, and he sailed it back to the Auckland Islands to bring home the 2 men he left behind. The Flying Scud reached the island. The remaining Grafton's crew was rescued alive and well. But before the ship turned for New Zealand, its crew went ashore to explore the ruins of an abandoned settlement on the northern coast. What they found there could change everything. His name was James Mahoney. He was the second mate of the Invercauld. He had survived the wreck. He had survived the long months of starvation. He had walked further than any of the other Invercauld men to find this place. Musgrave and Raynal had been on this island for 18 months. James Mahoney had been on the same island for over a year, 20 miles apart. Neither knew the other existed, and Mahoney had died alone, while the Grafton survivors built a boat that would have carried him home. In total, the Grafton survivors lived on the Auckland Islands for 18 months. All of them. All 5 of them came home alive. The Invercauld's survivors lived on the same island for 1 year. Out of a crew of 25, only 3 came home. 5 out of 5, 3 out of 25. Same year, same island, same ocean, same storms. What separated them was not luck. It was not the weather. It was not the sea. It was not the rocks on which their ships were torn apart. It was the man who led them, and what that man asked his crew to be. Captain Musgrave demanded discipline. He demanded community. He demanded that his men remain men, even at the edge of the world.